I got a question for you, Marty, and this is a bit off track, but you've interviewed Winston several times. I've interviewed him several times. I used to live in Tauranga and saw him walking around with his cigarette and his whiskey.
Yeah.
I interviewed Winston maybe 18 months ago was the last time I interviewed him on another podcast. What do you think of him today versus Winston in the past? And I'm kind of thinking about him as a person, him as an operator. Has he slowed down? Is this authentic, this King Cooker he's taken on board? Or is he just finding a base because he wants the power? What do you think of him today versus Winston of yesteryear?
Oh, look, I mean, I was a big Winston fan. I believe he was, at his height, he was the greatest he ever was during the wine box inquiry when he took on all of corporate New Zealand almost single-handedly and fought those buggers. I have an enormous amount of respect for him from that. And I have an enormous amount of respect for what New Zealand first represented as a genuine economic nationalism and a bulwark against neoliberal free market capitalism. However, he has drifted so far from that. And my fears are that while he was out of office, the private personal consultants contracts and consultancy that he did as a side hustle between his time in Parliament, they're very unvetted. We're not sure who he was taking money from before he got back into Parliament. However, suddenly a lot of donors are suddenly having their greatest wishes fulfilled.
Yeah.
I think that his leaning into the QAnon conspiracy swamp is deeply, deeply, deeply problematic because these people, many of them, live in an alternate reality. And for them, what they want from the Royal Inquiry is a Nuremberg-level trial where there will be public hangings of Jacinda and her family, right? Along with their pets. And so he can't give them that. He can never give them that, right? And you can already see the friction points erupting online in Telegram and amongst the sovereign sheriff community, who are outraged that they aren't going to have this great big trial and they're not going to look at the deaths and they're not going to look at the blah, 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 all the nonsense stuff. Because, of course, nonsense stuff can't be done in public, right? It's because it's nonsense stuff. And so they're already turning. And the problem of seducing this group of people is nothing he ever does will be enough for them. And the danger is they'll turn on him in a radicalization. And this is the problem when you tempt and flirt with that kind of hate algorithm. And he's got to constantly do it now to be able to stay in power. And I mean, we are not signing up to the WHO legislation. Remember, all that is, oh my God, it hurts my brain. All that is if there's a new pandemic, we'll alert the UN, the WHO, right? It's just an agreement of, oh shit, if something happens, we'll let you know as soon as possible, right?
Yep.
But we're withholding that. We're withholding signing that because people in Northland think the WHO were working hand in hand with the Chinese to
and
create
Fauci.
the COVID, let it loose, and take over the world for one world shadowy cabal. Now, because those people believe that, they're holding up this legislation, and we were laughing stock for doing it. So his need to stay in power is creating real world problems, and for whatever good he does, whatever good he's supposedly doing, the damage and the harm that he is unleashing here is problematic for our democracy. I think he's becoming a problem.
I said this a few months ago. I'll say it again. My father passed away in June of last year, on the eve of my birthday. The selfish prick. There was this change in the way he thought, how he spoke, and how he acted. He was 83 in the last couple of years. And I'm obviously not diagnosing anything here, but I'm looking at things that I've seen in other people. I can see the kind of the way that my dad's brain was starting to work in Winston. I can see him slowing down. I can see him, he does that thing where he says something really, 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 really mean. He goes, that kind of thing where he thinks he's being funny, but he has no idea. He's got to an age where it's not that he's not reading the room, it's that he can't read the room. And, my lovely dad said some pretty mean things in his last 6 to 12 months sort of thing. And it's more than just a political tactic. It's a cognitive change. And whether it's 1%, 3% or 10%, I don't know, but I see it in him like I saw it in my dad, and that concerns me.